everybody. It's Betty with Awaken Possibilities. We've got Sandy with us, and we're doing our first live stream, and I'm really excited. All day to figure out.
That's what you're saying. Yes, I can't imagine.
But great to have you back, Sandy. And
thank you. It's nice to be here.
Just so everybody knows, I'm going to live stream this, but I'm taking it down off of YouTube immediately because I think that the content from what you wanted to talk about, I don't think it's going to work on YouTube, and put it to my BitChute and Rumble page. So I'll take it down and then go from there. I am going to take a look. We are live. Okay.
And Rumble pages right away.
Let me
so
see.
Take it down, and then.
Let me turn the volume down, just so I can see if there's anybody who comes in. Nobody's in yet, Sandy, but because there was no way to put it. I was hoping it would actually show that it was going to come up. I think I'd have to do a premiere too. I'm just figuring this all out, so we're just going to wing it as we go along, and people hopefully. Oh, 2 are watching now, so we've got some. We've got some traction here. Fantastic. So, Sandy, you wanted to talk about trafficking today, right?
I am going to discuss the human trafficking, and I know I'm talking about this a lot lately, but it seems there's some force at play right now that is going out of their way to even grab more children. So even although we're hearing stories that they're rescuing children, there's Family and Children's Services, court cases. I was listening to Sasha Stone speak with a panel this morning, and one woman is from Sweden, one is from Denmark. It's exact same everywhere. They use the children's lawyers, they use the Family and Children's Services. There's no way these bitches don't know what they're doing. I am not cutting anybody any slack. I am so sick of the arrogance and the smugness of so many women who work in this system. And with all the documentaries that are coming out, there isn't going to be anybody who says they don't understand what's happening to children. That is just a bold-faced bullshit lie.
Fair enough.
So one of them came out, I think in Denmark, and said, one of the ministers came out and said they want 50,000 children a year. So they have to disrupt families to get these children. Who are we kidding? So a lot of what I talked about, I didn't share much with you last time, but what I want to talk more about is
want 50,000 children.
Well, because then they get paid. Family and Children's Services, I think they get paid $300,000 for every First Nations child who's in foster care. The families don't get paid that, but Family and Children's Services get paid by governments. This is big money. And the incentive has to be taken away from that. And I know at one point in the United States, I believe they were trying to get it set up that Family and Children's Services had to work to keep a family together. Well, I don't think some of those females are even skilled enough to know what makes a family great, what makes a person great, what is love, what is a mother's bond with the child. So these are the women that are mostly the workers pushing for this. And there's nobody knows how to destroy love like a woman. No one knows how to be loving like a woman. But we have a choice of which way we go with this. And what we're seeing is a lot of people are working on destroying love, but they're destroying other families while their families stay intact. So they still get a paycheck, they still get their cars, they still have everything going that the government pays them as workers. But the families that they're targeting don't have that. So what I want to talk a bit about, I can't remember if I was showing you this last time. This is the Fibonacci, the energy circle that comes around the Great Lakes.
Mm-hmm.
Why this matters so much, when we come back into Ontario, this is Windsor, this is Ottawa, this is known as Pedophile Alley. You think they don't know when they're trafficking children and women, what the routes are that they're taking? And I believe I might have shown you this one. This is the traffic routes, all the highways in southwestern Ontario, right, where they know they're trafficking from. So why I'm saying all this, this is under our noses. There's a program called Not for Sale, and what it does is it outlines where all the children are, how they're being trafficked, and they're taking them at truck stops along the 400 series highways. Well, when Dalton McGuinty was Premier of Ontario, they went and tore down all of those stations and put up new en route stations. So you can have a rest station, you can have Wi-Fi, there might be showers there, different food outlets. But what they did was didn't put any cameras in the back. So this is all intentional. And why, again, I'm saying this with these videos that are coming out, nobody's going to be able to say they didn't know.
Absolutely. And, I find it shocking. I'm going to be honest. I still find it shocking that people don't believe that this stuff is happening.
They do believe. So the three false gods, power, sex, and money.
They refuse to believe.
No, they tell you they don't believe. And I think they're full of shit. Because sometimes, where did all the mean girls show up? Remember all the mean girls in school? Where did they show up? Are they working in government jobs? Are they getting these lucrative positions that they work within destroying family units?
I'm talking about regular people. Like, I know people who I know are not part of it, but refuse to believe it. Think that, Pizzagate was a total, it's been debunked. All this stuff has been debunked. It doesn't happen.
I don't believe them anymore. There's too much has come out. There's too many stories of victims who've been mistreated in the court system. There's too many stories where somebody gets thrown into a quarantine camp for 2 weeks because of COVID, but they're letting sex offenders out. When you look at the sex offender registry in Canada, there was an article that even says Harper's sex offender legislation is tough on crime, short on smarts. Like they know all. So I've collected all kinds of information on this. There's people in the United States that say the sex offender registry in Canada is a joke. They get it. So I'm not picking on Harper. I don't care who is one of them, but they've even published in the National Post that Stephen Harper was at Bohemian Grove. So this is not information that I'm not sharing anything that I've got an inside scoop. This is all public information. If I can figure this out, anyone can figure this out.
And he's also one of the the Queen's Council of 600 or something like that. He's on that. I also know, sorry, I'm just adjusting my seating here, that he was actually also on that, he was indicted on, in that, what was it? The same thing that the Queen was. They were both charged and convicted of sex crimes against children.
When was he convicted?
This is a common law court, like world common law court. So I don't know that it has any teeth, but it was, I believe, the same court that found the Pope. What was the one before this one? The one that resigned. I can't remember his name. He was also found guilty, and they think that's why it was going to come out, so they made him resign. Because first time ever a Pope has resigned, right? But it was the Queen. Harper was part of that, and so was the Pope.
So Harper was also named. Do you know who Field McConnell is?
No.
Field McConnell is, I believe he was an airman, and his sister Marcy McConnell, he says, runs Pedogate, Pizzagate, and she works with Hillary. So it's the females who run these pedophile rings, and people don't understand this yet. So Field McConnell, he was doing AV8. Can't remember what the AV stands for now. And somebody gave him papers on Canada, and he said Stephen Harper is a pedophile and he's homosexual. Well, we know he's homosexual, and who cares on its own, except for they're lying and pretending it's something else. His wife is also a lesbian. That came out at Ben Levin's trial, Deputy Minister Ben Levin, who co-created the sex ed curriculum. So the reporters knew that she's gay. Why does this matter? So she's also listed on the top female, the women who are running the pedophile rings. She sits on the board of directors of the Calgary Children's Advocacy Center. So they've got the pedos right where everything is, past, present, and future. They're all lined up. That's why this stuff needs to be called out, because if that's the way it is in Calgary, you can bet it's that way with every children's advocacy center globally, and they're everywhere. There's in Texas, Boston, there's so many of them. Kristen French has one named after her down in Niagara. I think Rob Nicholson is on that. Now, I don't know if Rob Nicholson was a bad guy. He used to be the justice minister, but you have trouble coming out and saying things like this because then you offend the families, and do you know what I mean? But too fucking bad. This is happening, and if you don't know what's happening, we do. We're calling it. I can't make anybody do a thing about it, but I can make damn sure we all know how this works.
Absolutely.
So one of the things I was going to share with you last time, I pulled out the curriculum. So this is the Law Commission of Ontario, curriculum modules in Ontario law schools, a framework for teaching about violence against women. Notice it's not about violence against families, violence against children. It's always about the women, the narcissistic women, because we're always, I was at a playground and saw a cute little girl, basically went and raped her, like savagely raped this little girl. And they asked him why he did it. And he said, well, she was the brightest kid. Like, she had the most energy. She was the biggest spark and the biggest smile and was having the most fun. So they're trying to take his energy. But this guy told the guy who runs the police academy that he was abused as a boy. So they all go, hurt people, hurt people. Really? Well, if most of the victims are females and there's a 40% rate of people who've been hurt re-offend, shouldn't that mean the females are the offenders? Like, no, somebody's not doing the math here properly.
Yeah.
So they all know to say, I was abused, and we all sit here and go, oh, just we can't figure it out. No, you stupid people. What's happening is the universities are the ones who are keeping this alive. So that's what kind of Sasha was saying, not the universities, but he's saying the system itself, the frontline workers, the courts, the court officials, the judges, they're all lying. But when you look at the information center and take it back to the universities, this is where they teach the little fuckers.
Yeah.
I don't care if you're stupid or you're complicit. I honestly don't care. And I'm getting ready
to go back to something you said, because you know, this whole victim thing, well, I was a victim, now I'm the perpetrator. I'm sorry, there's lots of victims who don't become perpetrators. There is
totally
choice in that. And you know, it's very sad that people are abused, but you do grow up and get to make a choice on if you want to do that to somebody else, because you know the pain that you caused. It's actually, I think, my personal opinion, worse, because you do know what you're doing to somebody else firsthand.
It was either wrong then or it's wrong now. Pick one. You don't get both.
You don't get both.
So I knew a person told me one time that when he was 7, his 17-year-old babysitter touched him. And just certain comments that he made, he gravitated towards somebody I found out later was a pedophile. This guy had sexually abused one of his stepdaughters. But anyways, he would just gravitate to offside people. And it wasn't until years later that I figured out, no, he was the 17-year-old, but trying to pretend he was the victim. So I don't believe certain people anymore, and it's irrelevant. I don't know this person anymore, so it doesn't matter. But we have to start asking some serious questions. So let's go to the next level of this. So I've been thinking about like this weekend and different things had come up, and I was thinking about things in the past that I've done. So I've mentioned, I can't remember if I've mentioned it to you, I went to the COYA, the Conference for Youth Officers in Ontario. Okay. And I spoke up and I was talking about things, and people are coming up going, wow, that's amazing. And then we broke for lunch and I was sitting at a table by myself. This is down at Niagara Falls. And this gentleman comes up and says, may I join you? And he starts talking. He takes, wherever he works, I don't know where, it's up north, but he has a facility that has 4 rooms for 4 boys. So if they're in trouble in their homes, they can come in and learn how to do their laundry, learn how to cook, learn how to be self-sufficient, right? And I'm telling him this is all intentional. He's like, you're right on the money. He goes, you know what they do in the psychology now? So if they have problems with kids, what they do is they put a therapist here. Oh, can I show you that? Yep. They'll put a therapist here, and then they put the kid on the other side of the desk. So they're always in a position of authority because they're afraid of the children. Well, you should be afraid of them if you're fucking them over this bad, because maybe they do need to take a round out of you.
Yeah, well, they do. And this has to end. Like,
it has to be called out, yes.
It has to be called out, and we need to end it. Enough.
Yes.
We can't have pedophiles in power. Because
yeah, totally, but it's not just the pedophiles. So I'm not excluding them by any means with this conversation, but I want to focus a little differently. So when I'm at this house party and I'm talking to this man, and I said, no way, like they're trained to say that they were hurt just to get past you guys. And I can see he's kind of, you know, like he'd had enough of this conversation. Well, this woman comes bouncing over, right? And sure enough, she has to introduce herself as the wife just to make sure I'm not hitting on her man. And I'm like, if you're that insecure, why would I want your marriage? But that's another story, right? So then she starts talking, and I said, well, what do you do? She goes, I work in victim services. She goes, victims lie, don't you know? So they're trained by these same professors in these fucked up universities that are all promoting child sex abuse and gender dysphoria and all this stuff. So I looked at her, and she said like a few different things. And I said, and then he said, excuse me, because he'd had enough, I know. And he went back to whatever he was doing. And I said, what makes you think it's any of your fucking business what goes on in people's lives? Their lives are ripped apart. Why should they have to tell you everything that you, just because you ask? Like, who the fuck are you? So she goes, I'm going to go get some more wine. I'll be back. And she didn't come back in the next couple of minutes. So I just left. But I'll tell you, every time I walked through the house, I could see her eyes turn. She knew that she wasn't getting away with this shit. So why am I bringing this up? So I think of something else I did. So I go to the COYA conference and I'm speaking up down there and people are going, whoa. Hang on, you work in this industry and you don't know that? I went to Drug Awareness Week down in Chatham. I think it would be like 2018 maybe. And there's a victim, a very well-known victim who was one of the guest speakers. And he was there with the therapist. And so basically, Drug Awareness Week, you've got police in there, you've got Family and Children's Service, you got mental health, you got everybody in there, right? So I saw them at the beginning. I've seen them speak at different occasions. And then I went out to go to the bathroom before the event started, and he was out in the hallway. And I said, I'm outing the system today. And he looked at me. I said, Harper's a pedophile, because Harper was hanging out with Sheldon Kennedy, trying to hide behind victims there a couple of years ago, right? So I said, they're all pedophiles. I'm outing them. And I go, I'm not doing this if I trigger you. And he goes, it's fine. I said, I'm not doing this if I'm triggering you on stage, because then I'll look like the asshole, right? He goes, I said it's fine. I'm like, okay. So then I go to the washroom, I come back, and then whenever it starts, he's on the stage. But I always wear a bright color so they know where I am in the room. So anyways, and he turns and he looked at me, and I watched him, and I knew then I could speak. He was going to be okay. So he did trigger, but he got himself. He knew this had to come out. So you know, they talk for a couple hours, and then they're asking questions. I put my hand up. The convener comes over and gives me the microphone. She's crying because she can't believe these two people are here, and she's so excited. You're in charge of police services, and you're crying because of this guest speaker, because you're so excited. Like, these people are
out of mentality.
They're not hinged.
But that's our world right now, and this is part of the problem.
Well, this is what
people up on pedestals and not realize they're exactly the same as you and I.
Totally, they have a story to say it. So hear this out. So I stand up and I start talking about pedophilia in the system and the Family and Children's Services. The police are complicit, and I talked about Abel Danger and Field McConnell, and I said, you'd have to be an idiot to trust the system. These are the pedophiles. Doesn't the convener come over, grabs the microphone from me and goes, you're finished, and goes and hands it to somebody else. So you can't even tell these people, hey, you're too fucking stupid to even know you're stupid, because their egos get in the way.
Yeah.
I'm standing in the middle of the room. I kind of go like this, so then I sit down, because what else are you going to do, right? So she hands the microphone to somebody else who asked the two of them on the stage a question. And as soon as he answers the question, he looks at me and goes, I've got some conspiracy theories of my own. I believe they're pedophiles running the government too. He sat and talked for about 20 minutes about all the pedophilia in the system that he's aware of. But he couldn't have just come out and talked about it before. They wouldn't have let him. So I had to prompt. Do you know what I'm saying? Because they already know what they're going to talk about. So anyways, we go for break. I go outside because I needed some air, and I was shaken by this point because I didn't speak up back then. Anyways, so I come back in near the end, and it's a buffet. So everybody's pretty well gone through, but there's the cameraman who's reporting it and a few of the guys who stand back. And I go and get in line, and the cameraman looks at me and he goes, that's really some interesting comments you had to say in there. He goes, that's pretty impressive. And I said, I hope everybody knows how much I care about them here, because you can't talk about this stuff at the water cooler where you work or you lose your job. I hope everybody knows how much it takes for somebody to come out and speak up in a group like this, but that's how much I respect you, that this needs to be said. There was so much respect in that food line. Like, you could just see the people walking as we're all filling our plates. Somebody's got to have the guts to call it. And I'm not touched by any of it, so I can call it. I don't have a problem with any of this. So that's another example. There's another woman I know works at I think she works at a local women's shelter. And so she lives in my neighborhood, and she's talking to me the one time, and she wouldn't believe how much women lie. So they lie all the time. And I'm sitting here thinking, why do you think it's any of your freaking business? They need a hand. They're coming in for a strategy, and you sit here and judge?
Yeah.
But nobody says the abusers lie. Nobody says the enablers lie. Nobody says the bystanders lie. Nobody says the narcissists who work in the system lie. Nobody says the police lie. Nobody says the Family and Children's Services lie. Nobody says the children's lawyers lie. They all lie.
Yep.
So this weekend, what I started doing, I looked up boundaries. So my book, chapter 3 is about boundaries, inner, outer, and sexual boundaries. So this is my interpretation, and I try to set it up in a way that people can regroup with their boundaries. So I get online, I think, has anything changed about boundaries? And it was interesting because once you wake up even more, you go back and look with the same eyes, and it says, walk away, don't engage, don't give a solid answer. I'll think about it, I'll let you know, but walk away. It never says in the boundary dialogue, the boundary conversation, stop fucking people, stop hurting people. It never says that. So the best we're ever going to get is defend ourselves, which means the abusers can keep coming at you because there's no consequences.
Yep.
And that's enablers, bystanders, the people who work in the system. I don't care. They victim blame because they're trained, and that feeds their narcissism. Why all this matters with all these videos coming out, and if what's happening from what I've heard in the United States with all the human traffickers and these arrests that are coming in, people aren't going to say they don't know. And if you say you don't know, then what are you doing in that position for?
Yes. Yes. But, you know, I think that what we really need to see is more of the regular Joe on the street understanding that this is happening, because it's not on mainstream media. Yeah, you can find it. There's articles all over the place. Last week, I think there were like 4 or 5 arrests of traffickers in the U.S. And did you see that on mainstream media? No, they're not covering it. So Joe Blow, who's watching CNN and CBC and whatever, they're not even getting a little piece of it, that these people are getting found out and caught. And I think that's where I think most people, I know it's part of my frustration for sure, is like, well, I know about it. I go do my homework. I read. I'm subscribed to a bunch of newspapers that are outside the mainstream, so I can actually get real news. So how come I can get it, but they're not, because they're not putting the time in, because if it's not on CNN or CBC, it's not real news.
And they're going to get their awakening when it comes, and they're going to probably have a more adverse reaction because they haven't had time to digest it. That's not my problem. That's their problem if they chose not to. So I'm not even looking at them. But where part of this comes in, I had spoken to a lawyer one time, and it was just unrelated, like real estate, or I can't remember what I was there to do, or like a will or something like that. And he's talking about on Backpage, well, all these girls like having sex because they're all smiling on the back of Backpage. I'm like, are you kidding me? Do you think they would have them crying and makeup streaming down their face, and that's the picture they would use? I said, that's very naive. So he assumes they like it. So there's going to be some people that we have to understand, who are the Johns that are going in. So they say these people are being trafficked 20 times a day. That's like every 10, 15 minutes that you're getting with these people. All you're doing is ejaculating. That is it. You're not getting any kind of loving in there. You're not getting any emotional needs met. You're just ejaculating is all you're doing. But how is it that we don't understand that people go to something like the Super Bowl game and they bring people in to have sex with you? Like, what is wrong with you that you are so out of touch that that's what you think is your right, or that you actually get off on it?
Do you do that? Hold on a second. I've never heard of people going to the Super Bowl game and having.
No. So what they'll do is they'll be in the hotels around the Super Bowl game. But then so they're not doing it I don't know if they're doing it at the game or not, but that's, so they're doing it in the hotels around, but they'll bring people in to be trafficked to have sex for that day or 2 days or 3 days. So we have to start looking at a lot of things, the way things are. So why all this is coming up again, I know I mentioned the 2 universities in 2013 pro-rape chanting minors. Who are we kidding? These are the females chanting it as well, looking to see who is into this and who is not. So when we look at the universities who give out the wrong information, sorry, there's 2 sexes, male and female. If you've got 6 genders and 58 sexual identities, you are a fucking retard. And I'll have the sex talk with anybody. I don't care. I don't care if their hormones are out of whack. I don't care if they're a masculine woman. I don't care if they're a flighty woman. I was at a conference one time, and we were talking about something at one of the sessions. And this girl started talking, and she goes, yeah, I'm not sure if I'm going to end my relationship. She goes, I think it's abusive. And my friend goes, you should be talking to Sandy about certain things. And nothing really came out of the conversation. But later in the day, I'm out talking to somebody in the hall, and I mentioned the gender. Well, she stands and kind of goes like this and stands behind a pillow. So I can tell she's waiting for me, right? So I'm finished with the conversation. She goes, excuse me, did I hear you say gender? And I said, why? And she goes, what did you say about it? I go, what do you want to know? Because I know then people are really fucked up and they're waiting just to jump on you, right? So I thought she's going to work for this one. She goes, well, I work with people who are going through the conversion and changing their sex. And I like, you should be in fucking jail. I raised my voice. So what, you want to go and now be a transgender because you don't like your husband because this is your fashion week? Do you know what I mean? Like some of these women are just big. So I'm not picking just on women. We have a role to play. So do the men. But I really want to stress that the women are the ones who are pushing this. It's the women who are sending their girls back to Egypt to get female genital mutilation when they hit their period. It's the mothers doing this. I don't give a damn what your upbringing was, what your problem is. If you had it done to you, if this is your tradition, then you should be charged.
Yeah.
And it's getting to the point, it's the same with the circumcision. I was watching a video yesterday, I can't remember the woman's name, and she just came right out and called it what happens for infant birth trauma, including the circumcision. She said sometimes if the baby's breech, they circumcise them and they haven't even got their head out yet. You tell me these medical practitioners don't understand this is satanic? So we have a lot of work to do to understand just how barbaric our species is.
Well, actually, I don't believe it's our species. You want me to
In what way?
Well, because I think that there's more than just a human race here.
Well, okay, so I'm going to agree with that too, but right now we are all in human form.
Yes. Yes.
So
And I'm going to let you talk. I'm going to have to run out for 1 second and then I'll be right back. So you go for it.
Okay. So what would you, Betty? Okay. So is there any questions that people want answered?
No, but Karen's on.
Is she? Okay. Hi, Karen. So I'm going to talk about the universities again, what's happening in the universities, because this is where they're trying to decriminalize pedophilia. And when you think about the Family and Children's Services, they need victims to be able to keep this show called Society, Western Civilization on. So here's one, News and Opinion, Rutgers law professor who says pedophilia is not a crime. So these are professors. We've got another one, professors for pedophilia. These are the professors that are promoting this because they need screwed up people to fix. University academics say pedophilia is natural for males. Then we've got James Cantor, I don't know where I put that one, from the University of Toronto, who says the same thing, that is saying that pedophilia is a sexual orientation. So, and James Cantor, University of Toronto, works at CAMH. When are we going to realize that the pedophiles are the mental health monkeys? They're the ones trying to decriminalize it. So this is so important that we understand this, because you're going to your abuser and asking for this to stop. That's basically what you're doing by putting your faith in these people. I know I've shown this before as well. This is out of the Kinsey Institute. This is the number of boys, their age, and how many times they made them orgasm and in what time frame. So the first one is 5 months, number of orgasms, 3, and then it has a question mark for time frame. The next one is 11 months, 10 orgasms in an hour. 11-month-old baby, they made orgasm 10 times in 1 hour. 11 months, 14 orgasms in 38 minutes. And then a 2-year-old, 11 times in 65 minutes, 4 years old, 6 times in 5 minutes. And I think the absolute worst one is a 4-year-old, 26 times in 24 minutes. Do you think these sick fucks in the universities don't know what they're doing? And what the problem is these universities, then they start sharing information and they go to other universities, they start sharing their information similar to what a marketing group would do. And we have to start seeing that they are all in the same, they're all in the same frame of mind, maybe, if you want to call it that they all have the same intention. So it's no different when you go to a business networking group and you kind of break off to your rooms. They know who they are. And we've got to stop giving them the benefit of the doubt. I don't think I've mentioned University of Toronto. University of Toronto, in my opinion, is a sanctuary city. And I believe years ago, I heard that they have a sex center. And what the sex center is for is they're teaching the girls, they're trying to decide the difference between a clitoral and a vaginal orgasm. Do these women honestly think they are not being filmed when they're doing the practical side of this application in this sex center? And why this matters, when we look at all the female predators that Field McConnell was pointing out, all these women in high places, what they have in common is they all have university education. So that's why this has to start coming out in a bigger, like a more pronounced way. And we have to understand where all this is happening, because nowhere does it show us how to make a family healthy, how to make a family happy, what's the difference between the mother's love of a child, the father's love of a child, love of a sibling. So there's a lot of things that need to be, I think, need to be addressed when we are looking at how bad this pedophilia is. There's a woman in university, I think it's UCLA. Her name is Miriam Grossman. So when they were bringing in the sex ed curriculum in 2015, they had asked her to come up and speak in Toronto. She wrote a book, You're Teaching My Child to What? And she talked about all the physical ramifications and problems with this sex ed curriculum. And why I'm bringing that up, again, the education system is pedophilic. It's created in the universities and brought out into the public schools. But so she was talking about the harm and the damage by sexualizing children too early. And she said in the universities, even the students had come in and maybe had sex with the wrong person, or they were all messed up about it. And she said, this is why it's so important that we don't train young people to be able to go ahead and have sex indiscriminately. So what she was talking about as well was anal sex. And she talked about how the rectum gets ripped. And what she said was the rectum has 1 layer of cells. The vagina, she said, has 7 layers of cells. So one, for a few reasons. One, it can absorb the penetration from the penis, and that it can stretch when the baby passes through without ripping her open. But what's happening with the boys, they're having sex, anal sex. One, we know the sodomy is designed to jam up the Kundalini energy up their rectum. So it's designed to hurt the boys that way, or hurt the children that way. But they're also getting anal tears because their bums are ripping. And I've heard nurses say that they're always fixing rectums in hospitals. So then why is this practice being encouraged?
It's a good question.
Right? These are the teachers. So I was at a restaurant one time in the summer, and we were out in the patio because of the COVID stuff. And I'm sitting at a picnic table, and they were at the next picnic table over, and they're talking about teaching 15-year-olds about putting in IUDs. And I'm like, they're not your children. Who the fuck are you? IUDs my understanding, can rip the uterus. But this is the arrogance in our society. So priests think they can do whatever they want to the children because they answer to canon law, and they don't answer to the police, they don't answer to the world. Then you get the educators think they can go and teach whatever they want because they answer to the school board, they don't answer to anybody else. And I was thinking back on the weekend that the Ministry of Education has like a 200-acre sanctuary up by Dunchurch near Perry Sound. Mm-hmm. And when you think about all these hunt parties, like, your mind starts going, and it's just how convenient. Because I'm like, why would they need a 200-acre sanctuary up in cottage country? Like, what are they having, conferences up there? Like, who paid for that? So you start putting 2 and 2 together, and you start getting more questions, unfortunately, right? So there's a lot of reasons that we need to be starting to pay attention and understand that you're soiling your kids' spirits.
Absolutely.
My understanding is when I always find it interesting that the mental health community says, oh, children are narcissists when they're 2. So they get labeled right off the bat. Who labels a 2-year-old a narcissist except for some fucking idiot in mental health? So when the kids start getting a little older, what happens, little girls, their sexuality goes into dormancy until they hit puberty. That's why they're tomboys. They want to go and see what the boys are like, but not be interested in a relationship with them. They're still saying ooh in some ways, but it's the girls who go in emotionally and check out what the boys are like. And then when they hit puberty, then things change. Then they start going into dating, and they start to see the boys with different eyes. But now we've got mental health people saying, oh, girls think they're boys. No, their sexuality is dormant until they hit puberty. A lot of the books I read, Therese Benedict, I can't remember the other one, Margaret, I can't remember the other one I read. I read a lot of the books from the 50s, and some of them were earlier. Some of them, Therese Benedict worked with Freud. She just said he was a creep. But who gets promoted? The pervert. So we have to understand what's happening, that it's intentional in our society to destroy the children, destroy sexuality, destroy human lovemaking. Destroy, as we're talking earlier, the boys get circumcised in Western cultures or Western religions, and the girls get mutilated in Muslim. Either way, all you need to do is screw up one of them, and you've got a disconnected, dysfunctional sex life.
Oh, absolutely.
So why is little Sandy Glaze telling everybody this? Why aren't the experts telling you this? This is where I want to go with some of that.
Experts they have their own agenda. This isn't about truth. or protecting people. This is about feeding
Revenue.
their own dysfunction.
And revenue. So some of these people, do they get off on the pain they cause? And I know I've shared with you the mom that I was helping her daughter. She said her father was touching her. In 5 days after I filed my report and my recording, she was full-time in the custody of the father, and the mother was getting supervised visits. These are some of the bitches that work at Family and Children's Services, and I'm in the courtroom and they're trying to stare me down. But they've got, everything is on their side. There's no repercussion for them. Outside of whether you waited outside where they worked and followed them home and happened to bump into them in the grocery store, and you know what I mean? Like what other recourse do you have? They're untouchable. You think they don't know? And meanwhile, they're destroying families. So there was really an interesting interview with Sasha this morning. Some of the stories, all these women, whether from Sweden, Denmark, Australia, Italy, they're all saying the exact same thing. The social workers come in, freak out the kids and say, your child looks withdrawn. We're pulling your children. So why are we paying police salaries? Why are we paying Family and Children's Services salaries? Why are we paying court salaries? You cannot tell us that the stenographers or the people who are taking the notes in the court don't see the bullshit going on. How many cases do they need to see where they know there's been a miscarriage of justice before they start cluing in and you're part of the problem? And this is why the Western system needs to go down.
Yes. And what do you think, how far along that road do you think we are?
I don't think we can see everything yet. So one of my friends just posted something on Telegram and said 107. All she said was, here's my latest blog on 107. He says everything is going down according to clockwork. So if that is happening at the higher levels of government, and we're both hearing that there's pedophile, like sex traffickers are being arrested, but it's not being covered in the mainstream news. So what's going to happen? I'm not looking about this flowing in a linear fashion. I think what's going to happen, we're going to see all of a sudden things come out in one area. Then we're going to start saying, well, look at the frontline workers. Who's procuring these children? These little bitches right here. Who's the one blaming the victims? Oh, these would be the victim services. So I trust, it's not that I don't trust anybody. I'll hear what I hear and know what to do with it.
Right.
So I've had two women on different occasions. One told me she was raped by her father at age 5, like penetrated. And it was the best thing that ever happened to her. This is how fucked up some of these women are, okay? And then she goes, guess what she does for a living? She goes into Family and Children, or she goes into Indian reserves, like First Nations reserves, and counsels the girls who've been sexually abused. That's what she does. So can you imagine her telling them it's the best thing that ever happened to her?
No.
She would not have got promoted if she wasn't that fucked up. So I said, I find it hard to believe that that's the best thing that ever happened to you. I could think getting over it would be the best thing that ever happened to you.
Yes, it is all corrupt. Sorry, we just got a comment. It's all corrupt. Yeah, it is.
It's totally. So this is why we're calling it all out, all the way through. So there's another, I'm going to say a public personality, and she says she worked in Canada. And she got all these laws passed. And she knew, as she said, she worked in Ontario. She knew what was going on in Ontario. She wouldn't be bragging because there's no way she's anywhere close to understanding what's happening now. And I'm not putting anybody down for the sake, like I'm not just trying to put people down. It's the behavior that I'm having a problem with, not the person. So I'm not going to mention the name. I'm not going to mention the name. Right. So she says that she's so grateful that she was molested at age 3 because then she could see when the predators were trying to prey on her daughter. So should we molest and sexually abuse everybody on the fucking planet so we all know how to save the next generation? So this woman, she was interviewed with Michael Jaco, and this is what she said to him. He just stood there, and I thought, yeah, I don't know what he thought. Like I never posted anything on it. So we need to look at the advocates. We need to look at the people who are working on the front line. We need to look at the people who are going around to universities and going around to different think tanks and saying, oh, it's the boyfriend experience. Because I've gone to 2 of those and watched one online. All what they have in common is it's the boyfriend experience after they were abused as children, after they were in foster care. So I asked them what percentage were in foster care. Oh, about 70. What percentage are First Nations? Oh, about 50. These 2 are both First Nations, yes, but it's the boyfriend experience. What do you think the chances are she went to a dysfunctional relationship because that's all she knew?
Yep.
So you can't trust the advocates. There's one woman here, I'm not going to say her name, and I'm not trying to put anybody down. I want people to wake up and be accountable. But she says all these politicians come out and promise all kinds of money for all these groups. That's just the photo op that goes in the newspaper. The money doesn't come through.
No, it doesn't.
And we saw Justin Trudeau a year or so ago say he's not funding human trafficking victims anymore. And then I came across something in the Kawarthas, which says that the support workers are off on COVID. So you're getting, this is true, and all the DUMs are emptying out and they're bringing all these victims out. All the sexual assault workers are home on COVID. So how long do you think it's going to be before those victims go back into the system because they got to put food on their table and a roof over their head?
Well, I think maybe that's a good thing, Sandy, because the workers are part of the problem, like you said, and maybe if what we believe is correct and things are not as they seem and the white hats are in control, maybe they actually have proper people helping these people.
Oh, wouldn't that be, that would be ideal. Thank you for saying that. That would be ideal.
Maybe it's all a part of the great plan to get these asshats out of the way and put in people who actually can help.
Isn't that an interesting phrase? We've got white hats, black hats, and ass hats. Pickling, people.
Well, you know what? I mean, that's what Juan says all the time. It is time to pick a side, and
it is, yes.
No more sitting on the fence anymore. It's like you're on one side or the other, and that's all there is to it.
It's all there. Yes.
We're running out of time. We're running out of time. I watched a video yesterday. This woman in the U.S. I don't know how I stumbled across her, but frustrated, part of this movement. But at this point, because everybody keeps giving dates, and it's like, well, now it's like, she's like, I think she did the video on Friday or Saturday, and it was, now she's hearing like it was supposed to be by this time, like in the spring. Now it's like 60 to 90 days, maybe in the fall, and it's like people are losing their minds. And I understand that this, especially when it comes to what we're talking about, the rest of us can, you can deal with what's coming, but how much time is left for the victims, right? Let's get this done. Enough is enough. And make people aware of it, because when people, even if they haven't cleaned everything out, if we are aware of it as a collective, then, and aware of how we can spot it, that way we can actually help them take it out quicker, or the sleepers.
I'm not sure about that, and not to mean anything or imply anything, because I was at a store one day, and sometimes the conversations come out of the blue, and they're amazing conversations, right? You're in there looking for one thing, and you don't leave with what you're looking for, but you meet a friend. And the one woman said that she was very much focusing on what was going on with the human trafficking, and she said what the kids are doing now. So she said kids are trafficking each other. So what they'll do is they'll go to the mall and take pictures and say, which one do you want? So they've got some person, predator, getting the kids to take pictures at the mall and trying to go and befriend and lure them away. So we don't know what this is going to look like. So even what does it look like on the street? So what about asking about permission? And this is where sometimes you shake up the dialogue. So when you're working with children, do you think adults should have sexual attraction and a sexual relationship with children? Yes or no? I've got a whole do no harm oath. I talk about the 5 abuses, 6 abuses, and neglect. Read them. Do you understand this? Don't do them. Sign here. Before you even work with a child, sign that you understand what child sex abuse is and you're not going to do it. And it's easier to ask for forgiveness than permission. You're going to see which ones balk and can't do it.
Mm-hmm. Well,
so why don't we get every worker, every teacher? I know a teacher who's teaching the sex ed, and honest to God, she's very masculine. She likes to get in the rough and tumble sports. She considers herself a feminist. I was listening to her one day talk, and she was talking about daughters, and she said the ages. She goes, I'm pretty sure the older one's having sex. I'm pretty sure the second one. I'm not sure. And she said the third one's 14. I'm like, you're saying this at your fucking picnic table? Is it having sex is just something you pass the potatoes? So there's no guarantee because someone deems themselves to be intelligent, or that they have a PhD, or they have a BA, or they have a teaching certificate. And I heard on Sasha's interview today, somebody said, I went to Carleton University. Who gives a shit? You're a nurse, and you guys are causing a lot of damage and deaths right now too. There's no guarantee of morality.
No, there isn't. No, and actually, if you've gotten your PhD, more likely you have no morality, because they've indoctrinated you into being a drone.
I know. And that's what somebody else was a PhD on that interview, and there's no guarantee she knows what she's doing. That just means she can follow and take orders. But they went after her children too. But my point, so I don't think she's more intelligent because she has a PhD. She's just got more programming. And we have to get past this, like you said, assuming somebody's better than somebody else because of the role they play. Hey, if I can figure this out, why can't the experts? We should get a panel together with Peter, Little Kid Eater at the University of Western Ontario, Peter Jaffe. He's one who testified on behalf of Carla Homolka. David Wolf from CAMH. Hey, Julian Goger, that guy's got homosexuality written all over him. And I don't care, except he's trying to decriminalize pedophilia. So I work with a lot of men who were hurt as boys. They thought they were gay because that's how their body learned to ejaculate. And I've seen so many people say this. Who are we kidding? So, oh, you're not gay, you're just attracted to boys. Oh, really? But then some of them are attracted to girls, so you are gay. And you prey on children.
You know, there was an interesting book I read that actually talked about this it was a novel, and it was Paulo Coelho. I can't remember which book was it. Was it 8 minutes or whatever? It was basically how long it takes to have sex, and how it was, I read it a long time ago, but I think she ended up becoming a prostitute and she wanted to go into S&M, but he's like, don't go down there because when you go, it's really hard. Basically, it all was like, once you program yourself to get off that way, it is really hard to unprogram that. And that's what they're doing to these kids and to these teenagers and literally children and babies, is programming them to enjoy something that, or take pleasure from something that they should never be taking pleasure from. Because sex is supposed to be about love and connection. It's not about an act. It's not about getting your rocks off.
It's not, they don't call it sex making. It's supposed to be called love making for a reason. Sex making is just about getting off. Yeah. That's all that they're teaching. So it was interesting. I did that interview with Nicholas, and I got an email from somebody saying she went right down to the, what's that, BMS, or whatever the macho stuff is. And she goes, you wouldn't believe how messed up men are. And I want to do an episode with you and Nicholas. And I'm like, you're no better if you went down that road with him. Like, I'm talking about sexual abuse in the institutions and why it's so prevalent in our society, because we're paying for it. Nobody knows how to have healthy, loving relationships. Nobody says how to relate and what frame of mind to be in as you want to get pregnant. What do they do now because of all the infertility? Meet me at home at 4, my temperature's right, or whatever, right? So they get in and they just wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, and off they go again. So they've lost sight of all of this. In Germany, I saw some pamphlets that were saying for children, if your children are upset, stroke their genitals to quiet them. And then there's a professor who says, so people have to.
Blowing my mind. Like, who would do this? But,
okay. There's a lot of stupid people. So that's why I'm making no distinction between the ass hats, stupid hats, whatever, right? Like, if you're stupid enough, we're going to talk about this up front. And then if you're a male doing it, the women can decide if they want to partner with you. Can you imagine we figured this all out before relationships? Who stood for what?
I'm going to be honest. I mean, just think about it as an adult, and you are upset, and your friend starts patting your vagina instead of your back, or rubbing your back. They stick their hand between your legs because that's going to calm you. I'd be like, what the fuck is going on here? Like, it doesn't make any sense.
This is being taught in the universities and the child care sections in Germany.
But you think like, how?
I know, you're right. Exactly.
It doesn't make any sense.
But the baby wouldn't be able to stop it.
Half a brain would know that that's wrong.
So there's another professor who says he went to Africa. In the tribes in Africa, the grandparents rub their genitals of the grandchildren to calm them. But of course, it's in the middle of a desert. Nobody can get there to find them to see for themselves. Ah, right. That was that family on the moon, that tribe on the moon. Well, when did you go to the moon? Oh, you can't go there. They're in the middle of nowhere. Like, this kind of, people need to wake up. Sometimes I feel sorry for the psychopaths, except for the fact that they cause so much harm. I couldn't imagine working with stupid people every day.
Yeah, I'm just sort of reading just Jay Ross's, people are brainwashed and manipulated into thinking this is the right way. People seem to lack the ability to know between what's right and wrong. You're absolutely right.
Totally, and this is a war, the spiritual wars.
Is how, I mean, I remember growing up, and there was definitely, you got a set of, what was right and wrong, and it wasn't always, let's be real, a lot of dysfunction back in the, the 70s and 80s growing up.
But that was intentional.
Not like today.
But this is all intentional because it's generational only for the fact Gloria Steinem, everybody's favorite feminazi. Ladies, get out there, earn money like the men, be like the men, fuck like the men. So this is another female destroying the feminine principles of maybe you don't want to be doing that. Maybe you want to stay home and be a mom, but they've been shamed so bad. I used to work in financial services and people would say, oh, I don't work for a living. And I say, you work hard for a living. You just don't get paid because you're stay-home mom. You work hard. There's no way you don't.
Yeah.
So Gloria Steinem has come right out and admitted she's a CIA asset in the universities to destroy sexuality.
Yeah. Well, the whole movement was, I mean, to be honest, and I still do consider myself a feminist to some degree, but a lot of that stuff I don't believe in. It's like, no, I actually think that it's nice when a man opens the door. I thought that was respectful. I think that's respectful. Yeah. Like all of the things that they put into place is like, well, you know what? Not all of it is bad. It's what I want is to be paid the same amount as a man doing the same job. I think that's fair. I think a woman should be able to vote. I think a woman should be able to do, those kinds of things the same as a man because, yeah, we have intellect.
When we talk about generalization.
Exactly.
So look at two conservatives. You find two conservatives who have the same definition of what it means to be conservative, you're not going to get it. So your definition of feminism could be totally different than somebody else, but you use the same term.
Yes, it's about embracing who you are as a woman, but knowing that you have the same value as a man.
But that's your interpretation. And that's where the problem with labels come in. So there's nothing wrong with your interpretation at all. I agree with you personally, but it's the label because the feminist means something to somebody. Everybody has a different interpretation of what the words mean. And this is part of the problem that we get into. Oh, I'm a Catholic and, oh, I'm a Christian and. What does that mean? You can't have two Christians that agree on everything. So this is where the labels sometimes can be confusing. So how do we go back and say, no, men and women are divinely designed by Mother Nature to mate. You need the polarity of the masculine and the feminine energy. It doesn't matter if it's even homosexual or lesbian relationships. One is more masculine than the other. That's why they call them lipsticks and diesels.
Yeah. Well, and that's
it's the polarity
of this place and being human is that polarity. We need each other. We're equal but different. It's like that's all it is. It's not anything else. One isn't better than the other, and just like putting people on a pedestal, like this whole patriarchy that we've been living forever, putting men above women. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. This is what's caused all these problems.
But so when you look at this, I think I've shown you this before.
No, you haven't.
Haven't I shown you this one? Okay, so the 8th wave, we were self-authored. That was like Jordan Peterson's big thing. The 9th is, notice the men and women are equal.
Mm-hmm.
So the 9th one is all white, where every other one, we went through the phases where it was one or the other. So now we're moving into self-transformation. Yes. So as a woman, you have every right to be your best self, your highest self. As a man, whoever has the right to be their best self, their highest self. And this is where we're losing track instead of keeping track of the money. So if Jassera and Sarah does work out, pay everybody out and get rid of that money problem. But there's still people who are going to complain and say, well, I paid for my house. Why should you get a house for free? Because no matter what, people are going to bitch. So how do we get back to our best selves? So you represent very nicely as a woman and you enjoy being a woman. We've talked about this. I enjoy being a woman.
I don't want to be a man. No, I
wouldn't want to be. I would find that probably boring. Right? But that's just my opinion. But it doesn't mean I don't appreciate them.
No,
not all of them. Some of them don't deserve appreciation. So it's all, you know what I mean? So it's about being our best self, being able to bring on our innate abilities, bringing on our, like the intuition, the clair essences, and all that inner knowing, and really expanding as women.
And that's what we as women need to teach our children, not this other bullshit that we've been
talking about.
This is actually about, because when they're young, they are so much closer to the creator. I mean, if you harness all of those powers, they will have it throughout their life. Yes, they'll always have these tools. And when we do that, and this is why they have tried to, not allow people to do this, it's because once you become aware of your own power, even as a child, you will have boundaries, and you'll know when the predators are coming. It's actually about value of yourself too. And
I'm not going to necessarily agree with that, because sometimes these predators, sometimes it's force, sometimes it's grooming, sometimes it's trickery, sometimes it's drugging them. So there's all kinds of different, but it still needs to be, these are what the parameters of abuse are, don't do them. But when you talked about as a child, isn't that a parent's job to raise your children with appropriate levels of self-esteem, knowing your rights start and stop, and others do as well, and raise them to have confidence, because the confident children aren't the ones being preyed on. It's the ones who are being bullied, or maybe they don't have as nice clothes as somebody else and they're being judged for things. So we have a long way to go to right this society.
Well, I don't agree. Actually, there was what you said earlier. It was the confident, beautiful, sunny child that was the one that got targeted, because they have the most light.
They had the most light. So when I say that, so that's what I'm saying. That child didn't do anything wrong.
No.
And as 4 years old, wouldn't even think of protecting herself.
No.
Wouldn't know. And you notice anybody who gives any information about child sex abuse, they always tell the child to say no. Where are the friggin' grown-ups? I don't care if you're a police officer. So in 2015, I think it was, Bill Blair was the police chief in Canada, in Toronto, and Rick Henson was the police chief in Calgary. Both of them at the same time decided to run for politics. How interesting is that? So now you've got the police chiefs in the politicians who can access all of our databases and all of our information. Rick Henson didn't get in, but Bill Blair is. So now he's a liberal. But you tell me they don't have access to whatever they want from anybody?
MP right now, or he was.
I think he still is. I'm not 100% sure, but I think he still is. But so I'm just saying that when you start looking at the depth of the corruption in our society, you look at it's in our face. So we're paying the salaries of these people. I want somebody to show me the math. So now we've lost over 300,000 small businesses. What is the revenue that all these companies generated that are not paying anymore? So the government's not getting tax revenues. Well, who's paying all of these people? I've gone into Service Canada, and there's like 3 people in there, and they probably have, I don't know, I'm going to say like 10,000 square feet. Who's paying for that building that's sitting empty for a year?
Oh.
So all this stuff, it's all bullshit. Everything is a lie. So now what are they going to do? Come and take your home? Because they got to pay their bills to keep them in power. So they will kill you. They will give you the job. They will put you in jail. They'll throw you in quarantine to keep their fucking paycheck that you pay on money that isn't there.
Yeah. I think we're coming up to just over an hour. And Sandy, we'll do this again, and I'll clean up this whole live thing. But we got 5 people watching.
That's okay.
It's the first time.
And that's perfectly fine, right? That's okay. But we really need to have these conversations, and anybody wants any questions answered, I will share what I know, and it doesn't mean I'm right for everybody. I want them to be able to make their own decisions. Absolutely. That are right for them. But we're getting to the point, we're starting to see what's right relationship and what is not.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So and I think eyes wide open of everything, like the corruption all around us. Like, it's really everywhere. It is really everywhere. And I really want people to work on their self-esteem. And one thing you brought up, because I did a video on Friday, and one of the things I brought up is, I believe, well, actually, I'm sure, that every single client I've ever worked on, when we're clearing emotions, one of the things every single person has is either unworthiness or worthlessness.
Totally.
Every single person. It is ingrained in us to actually diminish ourselves, and that's what we have to fight against. So
I call that underesteeming. Everybody I work with underesteems. I've had a few that were overesteemed. So we're all saying, oh, be service to others. And I'm like, no, you've given too much. Start being service to yourself, and you'll be in better shape to still be able to help others. But you don't flip and give more. You stand up in your own power, because when we're standing up in our power, that's when you can psychically send the get out energy to the corrupt politicians. You can just send it out to any of them, whether police forces, the court systems, but really start standing in our power and saying enough. Because when you ask, how is this going to when is this all going to change? It doesn't matter, because somebody's going to have a piece of the puzzle here, and they're going to come out with and say, this is how you bring more love into your family. This is how you show respect for your partner. Everybody's going to come out with the different pieces of the puzzle. And then all of a sudden people are going to be going for, yeah. And if you've got Family and Children's Services who says, no, we're just taking children away, we don't want healthy relationships,
Well,
come out and tell us that.
They all have to go.
They have to go.
Last words? Anything you want to leave everybody with?
Trust yourself, because we're all learning right now. We're in different places. We come from different backgrounds. We have different experiences. Sometimes you might be in a place where you've done some inner work and now you're focusing on the macro, but it doesn't mean you don't go back and do the inner work at another time when more information comes in. Every feeling you have, there's no guarantee in life that every feeling is going to be good. You can feel lousy. You can feel sad. You can feel grief if your family members want to get the job and you don't. You can feel grief for pain that may or may not come, but it's not just the good feelings or the bad feelings. It's about all of them, being able to range yourself through the feelings. And I'm going to finish with betrayal, about lying. We teach children about Santa Claus, and when the child says, Mommy, I don't know if I believe in Santa Claus or Daddy, and they go, oh yes, it's real. So you've lied to your child intentionally, and you wonder why you got trust issues? Easter Bunny is the same thing. Why this comes up, I was at a house party, I was asked to speak. This was a couple years ago, and the mother was bragging that her 2 older daughters are lesbians, and she knows her 8-year-old knows how to put a condom on a cucumber. And I'm sitting here going, your child probably still believes in Santa Claus, but she knows how to put a condom on a cucumber. Okay, I'm not saying that's the size of a man's penis, but maybe not bad. You think of the size of a cucumber. She's already got it in her head what size of reference she's going to be dealing with. Like, where are these women's heads? So really take time to get to know what you think is right or wrong. And if you want to bounce some ideas off somebody, bounce them off and say, what do you think of this? But get your house and your relationships in right order, because if not, we're coming. And we're going to be very vocal, very public about this kind of stuff. And I'm glad you did a live, even if it's only a few people that joined us, it's okay. Because now we're getting ready that we can have more people come in and they can ask their questions. And
we'll do it again. We'll schedule another one for next week or whatever. And just so everybody knows, there'll be another live next week. I'll work out the kinks.
Okay.
Because if we actually
did great.
Black screen or so a few things were happening, but it's actually nice that I can actually see the comments rolling and
wonderful.
Yeah, I might do it through Zoom because then we can actually have the 2 of us on the screen. Because
that would be nice.
And I think I can use the same setup actually, which will be good. And so we'll tweak it as we go and make it better and better and better. But it's kind of cool to be able to do it live.
Oh
but
yes, I'm impressed.
And we'll pop again next week.
Okay, sounds good. Take good care.